is that there's actually a huge urgency, right? We have less than 14, 15 months to come up with solutions or start testing solutions if you're a brand and marketer, where you need to start thinking about how you're going to own your customer experience, how you're going to most importantly from that own your first party data and the insights that come from it. And then once you have that experience and insights being leveraged together, how do you actually make decisions using machine learning and artificial intelligence that can be scaled and replicated. So when someone is actually visiting your site or engaging with your brand, regardless of the touch points, they're actually getting that one-to-one communication that they expect. And I'm very much well aware that there's actually a lot of challenges of trying to build out this single view of a customer. And that's where the world of CDPs and first-party data platforms come in. But these are some of the common challenges that we're seeing, which is there's data in many different silos. You have your email systems, you have your Google Analytics systems, you have your call centers, you have your websites, you have your in-store visitors and your loyalty programs. All these are being different silos of data that need to be unified in a way. From that unification, and that's where AWS comes in. We allow for what we call a marketing data lake, or a retail data lake to come in, where that data can start being put in one place and going from what we call an unstructured data source to semi-structured or hopefully more structured, that could then be leveraged by enterprise companies like First Hive, that can allow you to do further segmentation and targeting and activation against media channels. But it's no secret that there are a huge amount of challenges that are in place to get to this point of view, and it's very much a journey. And so the topic of today's conversation, like how can you start beginning this journey, right? And the first is really being very serious about owning your own first party data, or being able to leverage it and start getting it in one single place for a source of truth. The second is, well, once your data is in one place, being a data lake or some sort of preferred database of your choice, you need to actually start cleaning it and removing the duplicate entries, removing any of the sensitive information that may be potentially exposed. And then as you get that house in order, you start allowing it to integrate with the best of third-party technologies, and that could be your various acronyms being buying platforms like DSPs, or your CRM systems, or your CDPs, but without doing step one and step two and investing now. And I mean really now, because the cookies and identifiers are really going to go away. You'll be playing a game of acceleration and catch up, where you won't be able to leverage years and years of data. And we'll be spending a lot more time building infrastructure and doing that type of cleaning and housekeeping, and not doing what we're all here to do, which is talk about marketing and activation. And then once your data is being shared in a secure manner, you can then start making sure that you can look for patterns and doing what we call identity resolution. So I can be Joe Smith or Joseph Smith, and how do you as a brand or marketer understand that that's actually the same person? Are you linking that back up to a unique proprietary ID that you own, or another ID that you might be leveraging? And are you removing duplicates, so you're not double counting your sales or your customers, and serving the same person duplicate messages as they move across different channels? So be it they're seeing a banner ad when they're browsing the web, and then they get an email with a different offer, and then they go on their mobile phone and they get a different offer. There's a huge amount of opportunity for waste, which we're seeing. And the way to start reducing that for media dollar expenditure is starting to get to having all your data in one place, and then unifying that data as fast as possible using both AWS services as well as partners like First Hive that will allow for you to start making sense of some of that chaos and noise. And then in the most mature realm of when you navigate this journey is hydrating your first party data with data partnerships, right? And that could be working with location providers to say this person is sending this longitude and latitude. What is that location? And there's many location providers that allow you to do that cross-referencing, or we're working with if there's some sort of seasonality in play that's affecting by the stock conditions or weather conditions. All of that can be combined once your data is secure and cleaned. And where Amazon comes in is that what we're seeing is this is not a an either-or solution of when we start this journey of trying to make sense of your first-party data. It's a very much a hybrid approach, where customer experience can occur through a multitude of different paths, and there is no one-size-fits-all solution on this. It's really about focusing on what your outcomes, what are your desired outcomes for this, and that means firstly getting your data that's from structured, so from unstructured to structured, then using analytics and machine learning to actually solve use cases. So not just throwing technology at a problem, but really saying, I want to understand my loyalty program. I want to understand churn prediction. I want to understand what my next best offer should be for my customers when they are engaging with me. And then working with partners and solutions to supercharge your time to market. So you're not focusing just on building and using cloud services, which is one option, but actually focusing on getting to a desired outcome of making sure that when you are dealing with a real customer, a real buyer, you're giving them the best customer experience across the board. And what we're seeing ultimately, right? And I'll close on this, and we'll go a little bit more into our fireside chat, is that when you are beginning this journey, right, please do not think of this as just a marketing investment. Where we've seen failures across the globe is the marketing team and the CMO say that this is what I want to do, and I want to have these platforms in place, or I want to build these solutions, but that they don't have the necessary buy-ins from finance, IT, actual physical retail stores to say that this is what this solution or these type of solutions will allow me to accomplish, right? And this is an example of just like myself and my colleagues, you order one thing, you receive something that you weren't expecting, and as a consumer, I'm now dealing with 4 or 5 different departments within your brand, right? I'm dealing with your customer service. So I'm calling someone up, and it's a very frustrating experience if I don't know, if I have to repeat what my order number is, or they have no way to cross-reference by my name or my address or what I bought, right? And then that leaves a very sour taste in the mouth. Then I have to then deal with finance to get a refund or an exchange, or deal with it's a supply chain. So I actually have to talk about have my customer teams deal with the warehousing to understand what orders or what supply is in place. All of that can now be unified. So actually the best part of it now being 2022 is that the technologies now exist, and we have services like Amazon Connect, right, where someone calls into a call center, right, you can actually get a full view of what that person's ordered and looked at, engagement with your brand, right? There's very little tolerance and excuses anymore for non-personalized one-to-one messaging. And what we're seeing as a best practice is like, do not build and invest in these systems in silos, right? Really view this as these are an enterprise level engagement, because every part of your organization should be using this the system, be it something from First Hive or bits and pieces of a combination of First Hive plus AWS services. The data that you're collecting from your consumers will only get stronger if different departments are leveraging it, and also different departments are adding to it. It's not that the first-party data is the domain of marketing. First-party data is the domain of the entire brand. And that's the way you should start thinking about it and looking at it to get the ultimate success for these type of investments. I'll turn it over to Vishnu to go a little bit more close with real-life examples and case studies.
Thank you, Neeraj, for this overview. Now, the next part of our webinar will be taken care by Vishnu, who would deep dive into the last segment that you covered about how data can be used to really transition the entire space of customer engagement. And Vishnu, over to you without any further delays.
Thanks, Neeraj, for setting that context and kicking start the conversation about what's happening in the industry, and therefore why the need today to look at the first party data to create the customer experiences, right? I'll just share a couple of experiences that I had this morning. So I was traveling from one city to another city. I took a flight, and probably they changed the flight. I booked a specific preferred seat that I always book. And this airline company sent a message just 40 minutes before I reached airport, saying that there has been a change in the aircraft, and your seat has been changed, but looking at your past preferences, we have booked this particular type of seat, right? It was such a wonderful experience. While they changed, one, they sent me a very personalized communication saying that this is what they've changed. And then they blocked the seat, which is if not exactly what I wanted, but at least something closer to what I prefer, right? So it takes care of the angst that, hey, I paid for this seat and you didn't give it to me and you changed it, right? And then, or coming up as a surprise. So it's a wonderful experience. Then I land in the destination city where where I reached in the morning, and then I work out of a co-working space. And I walk into this co-working space because I'm in the new city. I said, hey, activate my card for this entry. They said, hey, I'm not able to read your card. And they said, can I get your name? So I give my business card. They type in my name and they say, hey, my system is not able to identify you. Can you tell me your company name? Right? So they couldn't identify one of the largest global co-working space, and they couldn't identify me either by my card, access card, or by my name. So, very, very two different drastic experiences, right? Drastically opposite side of experiences. And if you look at it, one of the key reasons behind this is how you deal with the data. So that's where, going back to Neeraj, what you talked about, how data plays a critical role in creating these customer experiences. And for probably next 10 minutes or so, I will talk about what is the change that will be brought by managing your data well, particularly focusing on the first party data. That's what I'm going to focus on. Obviously, the whole purpose of using the data is to create the customer experience so that you can measure. I guess most of the audience we have here are from marketing teams. The idea is about getting that better marketing ROI out of it, out of the driving the customer experience, right? It has to be objective driven customer experience. Going back to just summing up on where Neeraj left, right? One of the key reasons why we are looking at, the marketers are looking at today, focusing on the first party data, is so far the focus has been on the third party data, right? Or third party ad retargeting. Marketers have been happy about doing a Facebook ad retargeting or a Google ad retargeting and driving the traffic from there and measuring the conversions. But with increasing regulations, there are going to be tighter controls. One of the European cities, EU countries, have actually said, declared last month, I guess, or maybe before last, they declared Google Analytics as illegal in that country. So what Neeraj was talking about, different countries, different regions, even in large countries, different regions and states will have different regulatory controls on how you deal with the data, and therefore different identifiers that you're dealing with. So therefore, the key aspect for marketing teams becomes, and also creating a good customer experience also becomes, the fulcrum of that becomes the identity unification. I'll talk about it a little later when I go into further presentation. So how do you get the unified identity of the customer? Because without that unified identity of the customer, you won't be able to create that good customer experience, right? I was telling you about those two different customer experiences. A large brand can't identify me on my name, and an airline that knows what I prefer. And therefore, even if they had to change the flight, they could find a seat that closer to my preference. So your data and your first party data is what creates a customer experience. Now, going back to that ad retargeting aspect of that, the challenges that marketers faced when they were looking at third party data was, hey, you launched a new product, so you would go to maybe Facebook and say, hey, I want to target all the youngsters in the range of, in the age group of, let's say, 20 to 30, living in major metros, and this is how I want to target. This is the content that I want to target them. It's a good way of increasing your reach, but is that creating a good customer experience? That's a big question mark, because if that particular person who is seeing that ad is your existing customer, there your customer experience suffers, because you are showing an ad to an existing customer who already bought the product. Or you're targeting a person who is not interested in that, so that's again a distraction, and therefore the customer experience suffers. And let's say the person clicks on that ad, comes back to the website, of what kind of personalization? If it's just a plain website that welcomes, saying that, hey, here is a product, it's a very, very product centric sale than a customer centric messaging, and therefore the customer experience suffers again. So these are some of the challenges that happen when you're looking at the just focused on the third party data and third party ad retargeting. Therefore, the marketers are looking at how do I use my first party data even to improve my third party ad retargeting and also better engage the customers when they land on my website. So that's where the focus on the first party data, and that's where the focus on the identity unification from the first party data, so that all better customer experience, better marketing ROI, better cross sell, upsell, all that can happen. Now coming to identity unification. So what is this unification? How does it look like, right? What are we talking about? So going back to that example that I said, which is ad retargeting. So there's a new product that you want to target people. So you set certain attributes. The person sees the ad on the social media, you push the ad into the social media, they see the ad, and from the ad, they come to your website and they drop out, right? And maybe that is an existing customer. And when they come to the website, they don't see a personalized messaging, but they see a product, they like it, don't like it, whatever it is, they drop out. So how do you know that it is the same customer who has come back, who has returned to your website? How do you improve the personalization? So that is where the unification comes into the play, right? And the unification has to look at all the data points. For instance, in that case, if the person who has clicked on a social media ad and came back to your website to look for that particular product, how would you track, or how would you give that intelligence to, let's say, your content management system running on your website? Tell that CMS that, hey, this person who has now come back and looking at this product from this cookie ID, this cookie ID was linked to an existing customer who with so-and-so mobile number who had done this past 10 transactions. Imagine if your content management system has that kind of intelligence, the kind of personalization that the CMS can do when the customer has landed on your website. It suddenly elevates the conversation between your digital properties and your customer, and therefore it elevates the customer's perception of your brand, and the rest of the things will follow, right? Better experience, better cross-sell conversions and all that. So that's where the unification comes into the play, where how do I bring together the data coming from each of these different interaction channels, right? I send an email campaign, who are the people who are responding, or at what time are they responding? So each person has different persona on different channels. So how do I put this all pieces together into one view? And not just that, how do you then embed the nuanced behavior of an individual into this unified data? Let me give an example. Let's say you are an apparel company, an online apparel retailer. A person who comes to your website, right? It's the person is not the same individual, same persona every time, right? Let's say the person comes, they're looking for some casual t-shirts, and when browsing for the casual t-shirts, after the list of t-shirts have come up, they will see a list of filters that they can apply. Let's say the first filter that they apply is price. So in their browsing behavior, what they are doing also reveals a lot about their persona. So you could tag that person as a price centric or price sensitive because the first filter that they applied is price. But will that persona remain the same every time, like a price sensitive? So next time when the person is coming up and looking at, let's say, formal shirts, and then if you apply this criteria that this person is price sensitive because last time they applied the price as the first filter, then the customer experience again suffers, because maybe for the formal shirts, maybe the person is applying brand as the first filter, not the price. So how the customer is also interacting with you is not a single, let's say, a persona which is carved into a stone, right? Each individual also represents different personas when they are buying different kind of products. The persons may show different persona when they are responding on different campaigns, right? Maybe on WhatsApp, where you send a content-based campaign, the person responds well, whereas an SMS-based campaign, the person may not respond well. So that also shows a different persona, right? So these are the different nuances. What content are you showing? At what time of the day are they showing different kind of behavior? At what on what day? For instance, maybe a person is looking for casual wear on the weekends when they are appearing to be price sensitive, or maybe on a weekday, they are looking for a formal shirt where they are not price sensitive, they are more brand sensitive. So different people reflect different personas on how they are talking to you. And this is where the unification is not just about putting a stereotypical tag to a customer, but rather having that nuanced identity tagged to them on different channel, on different behaviors. So that's what the unification is about. It's not just about putting all the data together and averaging out the persona into a particular averaged value. Now, what gets unified as part of this identity unification, right? So one of the key things of your digital properties are your website, and therefore there is a cookie. Yes, based on the cookie, I can do an anonymous personalization. Person who came last time looked for some particular product. When they come back on the same cookie again, I can do the personalization to some extent. But what if I link that cookie to their mobile number, to their device ID, to their demographics? Then my level of personalization that I can do to that customer suddenly changes from just being a simple content-based or product-based personalization to hyper-personalization. Going back to the example of someone clicked on a Facebook ad, came back to your website, they are looking for the product. But if I am able to feed the information into that session, saying that this person who is looking at this particular product on this cookie, this person is linked to this mobile number because when I sent last time an SMS campaign, this person clicked on that and landed on the same cookie. So through that, if I am able to establish this relation, and therefore now instead of just showing a simple personalized product, I also address them with a person, hey, Mr. David, come back, welcome back. Right? Then my personalization is changing from simple personalization to the hyper personalization stage. And this hyper personalization can happen in SMS, email, website. The channel is immaterial. It can happen anywhere. But the ability to that hyper personalization, do that hyper personalization, comes from the fact that you have unified the identity of the customer, right? Just to sum up, today the marketers face the challenge in creating and driving that better customer experience is because the data is residing in different places, right? The online digital behavior, which is largely the digital acquisition nurture, is lying in different places. Your content management system, digital experience platforms, loyalty applications, DMPs, marketing automation. So the whole marketing and or the outreach data is lying in certain systems. And then your ORM data, your social media data is lying in different tools and applications. Let's say you're a bank, you have co-banking system. If you're manufacturing, you have an ERP. If you're a retailer, you have an e-commerce engine and a POS. So different applications are tracking the transaction systems. And then there could be some analytic systems where you have consolidated some of the transaction data, not the interaction data. So this is where the marketers are facing the challenge where my data is split across in different applications. Even to get, let me give you a simple example. We're talking to one of the hospitality industry where they wanted to send a simple Happy Women's Day note message, right? And for them to get this data for all women customers across different properties, the physical properties, hospitality properties that they have, and different digital properties through which the customers interact, it would take several weeks to get the data. And a lot of places, even let's say the gender is not captured. So you have to apply some business rules saying that, people whose name has been tagged with Miss or Mrs., you want to tag them as women and use that information. So even to do that basic thing, it would take several weeks to generate such kind of International Women's Day campaign. So what is required for the marketers is having all this information about the customers unified and giving them the ability to create the segmentation and targeting is where the mantra for better customer experience lies. And what we have seen, this has been evolving space for over 2 decades now. But as of today, the one solution that marketers are looking at today is using the customer data platform, which will unify all the data and make all these unified attributes available for better segmentation and better targeting. And by giving one single brain for all the applications, we're not talking about rip and replacing all the applications. You have a large MarTech stack which would have evolved over a period of time. But the idea of adopting a CDP is to giving one common intelligence about each and every individual customer to each and every channel and each and every of your MarTech group. So that's the purpose of adopting the customer data platform that the marketers are looking at. So I'll just take a pause here. Jashan, I'll just hand it over back to you. Just wanted to cover what the role that data plays in the customer experience. If you have any queries which are coming through from the audience, probably we can take. How much time are we left with, Jashan?
Not a lot, about 5 minutes. But
okay.
we actually
let's take what are the questions that we can in these 5 minutes.
Yeah, so we actually do have a couple of questions that we received from the audiences and the attendees in one of the pre-event campaigns that we ran. So one of the questions which came across was, what are the top considerations that a brand should keep in mind or invest in to create an exceptional customer experience? Neeraj, maybe you would want to take that up first?
Sure, yeah, and in the interest of time, I'll try to speed through. One is that a brand or marketer should really start thinking of a person as a person and not, this is my consumer for email, this is not my consumer for mobile, this is not my buyer on web, right? You have to start internally removing the silos of how you look at your customers. And that's the only way you're going to get the change you need to actually improve and modernize your digital experiences. So start talking about customers as customers and not just your different silos of trying to get acquisitions and having competing interests within a marketing organization. Start saying, and then use technologies as such as CDPs and data lakes to start unifying and start to bridge the worlds between what we call digital and physical. And we create a new term called phygital, of course we do, to start to say, hey, a person's a person, be on a chatbot or on WhatsApp or going to your store, and start using technology to allow them to talk to a person across all of them seamlessly. And it's not easy, but that's first you have to start talking about it in a different way to do, and then use the technologies. Don't bring the technology in first, because you won't get the change you need.
And Vishnu, what are your inputs on what should be the top considerations for a brand?
Yeah, so extending what Neeraj talked about, right? The data unification or bringing the data together in one single place. So let me give a practical perspective of what I'm hearing from a lot of CMOs and marketing heads that I speak to, right? One of the question or dilemmas that a lot of marketers today that are facing is, hey, do I look at cross-channel orchestration as a priority, or do I look at bringing the data together as a priority? Which one should be my priority, right? Because the cross-channel orchestration gives you the ability to at least get started with something, whereas the unification gives you the ability to give much better experience to the customer, right? So this is where a lot of marketers are looking at, what do I prioritize? Now, obviously, the answer will be lots of ifs and buts, and a lot of what is your budget, what is your bandwidth, and all that. But I think the better way to look at this is not disconnect these two, but have a joint strategy on how we are going to approach. Right? You need to have, let's say, multi-channel or cross-channel, omni-channel orchestration that needs to go. But if it is just a superfluous orchestration, which is you have integrated your cookie with your email ID, that's it, right? Obviously, at some point in time, the experience is going to break. So that's where your unification also comes part of it. So the recommendation would be to look at hand in hand. Obviously, you can look at how you want to phase it out, but have a strategy for customer experience based on a cohesive approach for your unification as well as your omni-channel orchestration. That should be the priority.
Thank you, Vishnu, for taking it up, because that was actually a follow-up question. Which said that if one of our attendees is invested in an omni-channel marketing hub, but they wanted to know what next. So I understand you say that the first step to an omni-channel marketing hub is your data ingestion and unification. And yes, a customer data platform is, as a software, as a service, steps in there to help elevate your omni-channel customer experience hub delivery.
Yeah. So let me since there is a follow-up question, let me give a practical example also, right? Let's say we are working with one of the largest the battery companies, the batteries that you use in your vehicles, right? A person may have multiple vehicles, or a person may have a UPS at home and a battery in the vehicle, and so on. And when they are buying one vehicle or a battery for one vehicle, they would have given one mobile number, and maybe they bought it online when they're buying the other battery for other vehicle, right? So if the identity is not unified, the person, the company that we are working with is the same person will get two communications because they have provided two different things. Even if you have provided multi-channel orchestration, if the identity itself is not unified, the experience ultimately suffers because you treat the same individuals as two different customers because you are not unified identity at the back. So that's the reason I was saying that the unification is also core priority that someone should look at while doing the multi-channel orchestration as well.
I think we're short on time, but just to quickly conclude, one last question, and it has to be a one-line answer. And the question is, if you must answer, how can brands deliver exceptional customer experience to drive business growth? And just in one line. Neeraj, why don't you take it up first?
Simply, customer experience is not a marketing function. It's every function in the organization's role to maintain, improve upon, and work together with.
Well said. And Vishnu?
Yeah, so get the ability for micro segmentation. We talk about segment of one, right? Some would have reached there, some long way, but at least look at micro segmentation. The ability to do micro segmentation based on transaction and interactions and events. And that's, I think, would be the first thing the first step that you should go out for.
All right. So thank you, Vishnu. Thank you, Neeraj. As we draw close to the closure time, I think we should conclude this webinar. And to all those who joined in, thank you so much for your participation and joining us for this event. In case there are any other questions that you may have that you would like to pose to our subject matter experts, the speakers, please feel free to drop in an email to marketing@firsttype.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.